the cloud. There we go.
So, do you want me to call on you first here?
You can start the meeting like usual
Okay.
and just do what you
Well,
normally do.
welcome to the October 17th, 2023 session of Tangerine SDR and Hamside technical session. My name is Dave Larson, KV0S. We had a uneventful eclipse because it was pretty much all on the radio. We had solid overcast and did not see the sun at all that day. Um, so that's it for me. I did get my radios all were working good, so I hope to have generated some data. Anyway, that's it for me. Next on the list, we have Nathaniel, W2NAF. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Thank you very much, Dave. I really appreciate it. Um, let's see. It was a very eventful week for me because yes, we had the eclipse and I think it went really well. I hosted a solar eclipse QSO party over at my house. So I had a number of students and faculty and friends come over. So here is Tom Pisano, KE2BAC, working at FT8. And my mom was KC2KRQ. She was helping work FT8. And there's Bob McGuire, N4HY, working on the low low cost, low power ionoson project that we've been working on with Gerard. And that was an interesting project because we set up these antennas, a couple extra fan dipole antennas for like NVIS a couple of weeks ago, and they worked just fine. And then last week he came up, we tried to use them, and it looked like there was no antenna there. The SWR was horrible. It turned out that small woodland creatures completely ate through the
Yeah,
coax in three different places. So
yes.
Friday afternoon, we were out there splicing coax, but we got that done. And then this was one of the most exciting things. This is the grape data. You could see dawn. There's the beginning of the eclipse. There's the end of the eclipse, and that was where we could just really clearly see all those see the eclipse in the radar data or radio data because it was cloudy otherwise, but we got really nice radio data, and we took lots of photos of that. And then Jonathan, um, he was very excited, but I will let him tell you what he was very excited about when you get over to him. And there's the students, and also with Dr. West and Rachel and Dr. Spletta. So we had a wonderful time. And we NASA's been playing a video about HamSci for the past couple of days. They released it on YouTube, which is really nice. They actually did a full production type of a little 1.5 minute video about HamSci and the eclipse. We got in the newspaper in India. I had a interview with AR Newsline today. I think everything went really well. So it's very exciting. Back
Very
to net.
good. That is wonderful, the press that you're being able to garner.
Yeah.
Next on the list, we have Dave, KD0EAG. Go ahead, Dave.
Hello everybody. I've been busy, but not so much with the same things as everybody else. As you said, Dave, the eclipse was pretty dismal here. It was a pretty sad, gray Saturday morning, but I spent a lot of time working on boards and documentation and things. So that's what's been keeping me busy. Um, but I'm glad everybody had a good time with all that.
Yep. I will comment for those of the that might feel sad for me. In 2017, we had an eclipse go directly over us, so it was not. We've been in a beautiful, wonderful, full eclipse. So anyway, next on the list we have Phil KA9Q. Go ahead, Phil.
Hi, gang. Yeah, I was up Saturday morning. I didn't really do much to view the eclipse optically. I went outside with my camera and took some pictures I posted on Facebook of shadows of trees, which I think is always a cool effect, turning into crescents. Um, Other than that, I was basically just monitoring radios and making sure that Rob didn't call me in a panic. I've heard very little from him in the last few days. He said that now the eclipse is over, we're going to hear from him again, but I haven't. He's got his Whisper Demon running on one of my machines, and it's manually scribbling away on the disk, about to fill it up. And I told him this, but I haven't heard from him yet. So if he wants his data, he better get on there soon. Other than that, I have a microwave club meeting tonight, so I won't be around too long.
Oh, okay. Well, very good. Next on the list, we have Michael, AAAK. Go ahead, Michael.
I always hit the wrong button. uh, Greetings to everyone listening. The only thing I could get going for the eclipse was Whisper Receive, and got that going right after it started. Had to download Voicemeeter Potato to get it to communicate in Windows. But it was great. Happy to participate. Back to you, Dave.
Very good. Next on the list, we have Bob in 5BRG. Go ahead, Bob.
Good evening, everybody. I like your story there, Phil. Nothing like having your friend leave a project running that's filling up your hard drive. Anyway,
it's a machine that actually wasn't doing anything else. So if it fills it up, it won't bother me. I just don't want him to lose his data.
Yeah. I had a good weekend. We had a party out here at my place with a bunch of hams and during the eclipse, and set up a scope to watch it. We were watching it, photographing it, and had all of my stuff running. The magnetometer, the gray stuff was running and recording data on 2 units, and the super SID. And now it's a scramble to try to figure out how to reduce the data and really see what kinds of effects I saw or reduce. I look at some of it and I can see there were some changes, so that's interesting, but got a lot to do now to try to work with the data. So back to you, Dave.
Okay, very good. Next on the list is David McGaw in 1HAC. Go ahead, David.
Good evening, everyone on the net. Yeah, it was an interesting weekend. We didn't get a large eclipse, so a lot of people weren't aware of it. But we had our large amateur radio flea market called Nearfest this past weekend. So I took some eclipse glasses so that I could show people. And a friend of mine who's also part of the Springfield Telescope Makers had a nice solar scope that we could put on. There are some pretty large sunspots on the sun right now. And for the Hamsai event, I left my receiver running 10-meter Whisper, and I did check that it uploaded fine from about 1200 to, I guess, 0200 the next day. And it'd be interesting to see what we find. Propagation differences. We did had trouble with our AM Doppler system, but we did have a few receivers online, including one in Ohio. And there are definitely differences between the local one and the Ohio one. And again, going to go back and look at the data. There were some things happening during the time of the eclipse with some carriers coming and going. So I'm sure we'll be very busy looking at data until the next one. So back to net.
Okay, very good. Next on the list is Franco, K4VZ. Go ahead, Franco.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I've been helping Rob Robinett and Clint Turner to make sure that all the Alex 888 data was saved to disk. So I was waiting to hear from Rob how it went, the whole thing, but I don't think it's there. Other than that, there was not much eventful here on Saturday. Back to Nat.
Okay. Next on the list is Jay, WB8 SBI. Go ahead, Jay.
Okay, hang on a second here, guys. Let me get my camera on. Howdy, everybody. Well, I was on 20 meters FT8 the entire time. I left overnight, Friday night, Saturday morning. I had my system just monitoring 20 meters FT8 and FT4 and uploading to PSK Reporter. So a lot of what I heard or didn't heard from Detroit should be there. And then from shortly before the eclipse to several hours after, I operated 50 watts on a vertical antenna and made about 47 Qs total, including got one brand new DX country. I got Belarus, which I hadn't worked before. So put it all up on Logbook of the World. I've used Ham Radio Deluxe, and that exports in Cabrillo format, but it's not the same as there aren't as many fields as what happens when you use an export from N1MM. Yeah. So what my plan is to edit the export file and fill in the gaps of what N1MM puts in there that the HR Ham Radio Deluxe does not, and then upload them both into the system. So as far as Soapbox goes, here in the Detroit area, it was cloudy and rainy from Friday night to Saturday night the whole time. So there's a reason why I didn't hear a lot, and not a lot of people heard me, even though I did make that European contact. Everything else was just, here in the Midwest and Northeast. Why is that? It seems that rain washes out the RF out of the atmosphere so that, you can put up all the RF you want, but it doesn't survive a good rainstorm. So the rain not only washes the pollution out of the air, it washes the RF out of the air. So, oh, well. And otherwise, that was about it. Had a good time, and looking forward to the April one. So KV0S from WB8SBI.
Okay. Next on the list is Gary, AF8A. Have you survived?
Hey, Dave. Good evening, everyone. Oh, yeah. I had a lot of fun this weekend. Made about 100 QSOs, about a 60-40 FT8 and CW split. I think I made more FTA QSOs on Saturday than I have in my entire amateur career, but it was good. It was a lot of fun. Just been answering a few questions that have come back from participants having trouble uploading their logs and whatnot. I have to say there's been very few questions and very few issues. So the 150 logs we've gotten so far are looking good. We've had about a half a dozen or so guys from the PA event upload their logs, so that's working too. So we'll keep at it and see what comes in. Back to Nat.
Very good. Next on the list is Joe, W7LUX. Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, good evening, all. Drove up to Hatch, Utah, and then a little bit further to a reservoir and watched the eclipse from up there. It was a little bit south of the center line, but it was nearly a symmetrical eclipse. And most of the people at this outlook had cameras on their telescopes. I set up an old Celestron with a front filter and immediately had 14 or 16 people gather around wanting to look at the eclipse. Some of them had sunglasses, some of them didn't have anything. So we spent a while showing people the eclipse through the telescope. And one of the visitors was extremely adept at taking photos, afocal with a cell phone camera through the eyepiece. And almost everybody left with at least a few images of the eclipse, mostly around the middle part of it. That worked out very well. Okay, I'd like to share my screen because the radio system worked very, very well here. And the top graph shows a typical, what do I say, a typical Doppler shift from the morning until late in the afternoon. And this area right around here between 1500 and 1800 is very similar for most of the recent, I want to say, morning events. Look at the difference here. Here's that same area that used to be nice and smooth. So very definitely a sharp drop, a sharp peak, and then back to normal. So anyway, that's what I have here. I think the other system worked, but I have no way of verifying that. I wasn't here to take screenshots. Back to you, Dave.
Very good. And let's see. Oh, I somehow skipped over Jim, K4BSE.
I can also report that Joe's other DRF system did work because Bill Engelke did run plots of all of the digital RF radio data that was submitted, grape data that was submitted. And so I saw Joe's plot and it looks very nice.
Well, there he
thank
goes.
you, Daniel.
You're welcome.
Okay. So Jim, K4BSE.
Good evening. Yeah, I have been working hard to get my DRF system running in time for the eclipse. And that turned out to be a little bit more of a chore than I expected it to be for a couple of reasons, and not the least of which was I had no idea how hard it's going to be for me to get things physically moved around in the shack with just having had knee replacement surgery. But I was able to get it running late Thursday afternoon, and it's recorded Friday, Saturday, and it's continuing to run now. And yeah, I got something kind of similar to what we just saw, but from Gary, I guess. But it wasn't. It was actually even more pronounced than what Gary had, and which surprised me a little bit. The path of totality was not between me and WWV at all. It was off to the side, but I guess we did get some decent amount of occlusion. We had 52% occlusion here in the Atlanta area, and we were able to see the difference. I didn't have anything to let me look at the sun itself, but we were able to tell the difference in the brightness, but we had so many clouds coming over at the time, it was a little bit hard to differentiate between that and what the clouds are doing. So I'm looking forward to the one next year. It'll be on celebrating my oldest daughter's birthday, April the 8th. And hopefully I'll be in a little bit better position equipment-wise to look at that one. Back to net, K4BSE.
Oh, very good. So now we'll back down to Jonathan, KC3EEY. I understand you were with Nathaniel.
Hi, everybody. Yes, actually, it was quite an extraordinary day. I was very, very happy with how everything went. All the data looked beautiful. And to my biggest surprise, probably the biggest surprise and biggest treat of this eclipse was that a solar flare occurred at the same time as the eclipse. So what I recorded was both the effect of the solar flare and the solar eclipse at the same time. I was just I simply could not believe it. I posted the plots, the GOES X-ray plot, the plot of NAA. That's my best received VLF transmitter, and I also posted a spectrogram, a compressed spectrogram of spherics. But I just wanted to show this here. This really cool effect. What you see here, the bottom plot here, the amplitude between 1600 and 1700, you could see the that little bump. And what that is that's both the effect of the solar eclipse. So what will happen is with VLF, you will get less absorption in the D layer, and therefore your signal will increase. So that's why there was an increase in amplitude. And you also get the same thing when you have a solar flare. And what I believe what I'm seeing here is the effect of both. So the next step would be modeling. So what I would do is I would model probably with LWPC. I would model the solar flare and model the solar eclipse and then superimpose them. And the hope is that I would see the same thing in the data. So this was really quite quite a capture, is that you had a solar flare at the same time as you had the eclipse. And I also saw one of the eclipse pictures. There was a beautiful prominence that was visible on the ring, which was really cool. So this was something that I was just ecstatic. And then to top it all off, I wanted to show the plot here. So this is a compressed spectrogram. So what you're seeing is these yellow bands are actually spherics, but on a compressed time scale. And so normally they would just be lines, but since it's compressed, it all kind of blends together. You can see at around 2 kilohertz, that's the typical absorption of the Earth ionosphere waveguide at that mode. But you can see around the eclipse here, you can see decreased absorption, which means you can see a little bit more red here, and because at night when the D layer disappears, this daytime absorption at around 2 kilohertz tends to lessen quite a bit, and that's why that you could hear tweaks very well. And so just for this moment, due to the solar flare and the solar eclipse, you have decreased absorption in the spherics, and actually you can see this well-defined yellow vertical line here, and that's at the peak of the eclipse. So this was very indicative of the D layer behaving the way that it should during a solar eclipse and a solar flare for very low frequencies. So this was quite a really cool observation. And so yeah, the next step is modeling modeling spherics might be a little bit more difficult. So I'm going to have to read up on that because that's always fairly complicated. But still, this was a wonderful observation, wonderful day. And as always, a big thank you to Nathaniel for a wonderful day and hosting the VLF receiver. That's all I have. Back to Nanette.
Okay. And last on our list is Lee, KF7YRS. Go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, hi. My name's Lee Phoebus. I'm KF7YRS. I'm in St. George, Utah. We had a beautiful day, sunny day, no clouds, and very close to the center of the path, not as close as Joe was. I host grape number 55, and I would be outside watching the eclipse and then coming back in and looking at the grape plot and running outside. I don't have a way to display the grape plot without looking at it in a screenshot, so sometime I hope to be able to look into the computer and look back. But if I can share my screen, hang on.
Go ahead.
This is the, if you can see this. This is the plot from the grape. This is near the end of the eclipse, and this is the beginning of the eclipse.
I'm not seeing it.
Not getting the share.
Hang on here. Maybe I didn't push the right button. I don't do the Zoom conference very often, so I might be inept.
Yeah, that's okay. The share is a two-step process. You first press the share screen button at the bottom, and then you have to choose which display. You have to press another button.
Okay, I got it. Hang on. I think this will maybe do it.
Now, black, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, look at that.
Okay. Yeah, and so if I can zoom in here a bit and bring this down, this was sunrise. I always see this at sunrise. And then I often see pretty much a straight line through the day. Sometimes it deviates a little bit, but on this day, we saw the normal line, and then this was the eclipse. And there was a dip in the eclipse and came back up, and then it split into two, came back down. So I was running outside checking what was going on and running inside and checking the grape, and it really did coincide fairly well with the eclipse here. So I was pretty happy with that. It's about a 1 hertz, 1 point something hertz frequency shift, but again, I'm pretty close to the eclipse central line. I'm going to show some other things here if you got a second.
Where are you, Lee?
That's actually very interesting right there, where it appears that maybe E layer is coming in after the eclipse.
I'll put it
That'd
back
be
up
the straight line.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you located?
St. George, Utah, just the southwest corner of Utah, about just north and a bit west of where Joe is in Flagstaff.
Okay, so probably one hop at most from Fort Collins.
Yeah, we were pretty close, within 50 miles or maybe 100 miles or less of the maximum eclipse line.
No, I mean from WWV.
Yeah, it's about the same distance as Joe's. In fact, pretty much exactly the same distance as Joe.
Okay.
It just put a link in the chat that has the summary plots of all of the grape DRF data that was submitted to Bill Engelke's server.
Oh, good.
So you can click that, and you're welcome to view things for yourself.
Could I show one more thing?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to try and share again, and this is, again, a bit of a tricky process, but hang on. If I go to photo gallery, maybe let me show other photos there too. But this was the eclipse in 2017, just for your information, 80-meter whisper, time course of the eclipse. It's not relevant to this eclipse, but it was quite a big effect from minus 20 dBm up to nearly 0 dBm and then falling back to minus 20 on 80-meter whisper when I was here in St. George. But this is what I wanted to show you. We have a solar panels on our roof, and there's nice data output of the solar panel production over time. And this is the beginning of the eclipse here at 9:30. And then this is the peak of the eclipse at 10:15. And then this is the end of the eclipse here. So I got a pretty good marker here for the intensity of radiation reaching the house here. So that's about it. I'll stop there. I could probably go on for a while.
Yeah, I got one like that, but better.
Okay.
Let me share the screen.
You got to love the scientific one-upsmanship.
Oh, I do.
Really. This is a slightly larger array of collectors here. This is the entire California grid.
Oh.
And notice renewable power kind of takes a hit that morning, right? And then back up. I mean, the vertical scale here is in megawatts.
Yeah.
So it dropped from, it was already up to about 10 gigawatts, and then they dropped down to 5 and then back up again. And notice how they had to compensate for it. The top graph is natural gas, and then this is imports, and then there's batteries. So just like your system, there's batteries on the grid.
Right.
I thought that was interesting.
I think you did one up me. That's a really nice graph.
Well, in terms of power levels, I think so. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
It was fun. I'm looking forward to next year's. I'm not nearly in as good a position, but we'll see what happens.
That's great.
Yes.
Then, of course, my favorite eclipse phenomenon is this one, taken on the sidewalk in front of my house.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is nice.
Okay, it's my turn to one up you on this one.
Okay, go ahead.
Hang on, if I can find that share button again. Are you seeing this at all?
Not just your head.
Yes or no? I'm sorry.
No. Your head.
Okay, my head. Hang on. I'm going to do the screen share. I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to share it. I'm going to go write a couple pictures.
That's your regular one. That's your solar.
Yeah, that's right. Hang on. I really have to go to a different folder. Any chance you can see this one? Or do I have to share it separately?
I think you got to share it separately.
Okay, let me go back to the share screen, new share. And the new share will be this one, share. This was coming through the trees, and that's a picture
there
of
we
my
go.
driveway.
That looks great.
A greater fraction. No, that's better.
That's
It's like a universe. It was like a parallel universe of eclipses everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were too cloudy to see that here.
Yeah.
I like the colander ones.
That's a great one.
Yes.
Those are great.
Yeah, it is.
You could take your hand up in the air and make a fist with a pinhole through it and just project it on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's 1-to-1. You win one and I win one.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to stop share.
Okay. So, unless you have another additional comment, I'm going to close the roll call. And I think I called on everybody. So we are open for general discussions.
That sounds great. Dave Witten, how are your boards coming? Oh, wow.
Dave should be there. Maybe.
Yeah, I think he's muted, but he's displaying his board. I can see him displaying.
Yeah, you're muted, Dave. There you go.
Okay. Just this afternoon, about 3 o'clock, I guess, I got my latest little shipment from my friends in China, and which is this latest baseboard that plugs in the Cypress and the A to D modules, and it's mechanically far more suitable than what I had last time.
Dave, hold it in front of your face. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand how this works, but yeah, you can see that's the Cypress module on that side, and on this side it plugs in one of the many LM analog devices, linear A to D modules that come set up different ways. So I haven't, at least mechanically, it's far more suitable than the first ones I got. And so I'm getting the hang of that part of the process. And it's, I've been interacting with John Ackerman about try work out the timing side of things. So that's moving forward. I have no idea whether this is electrically intact, but I've only had it a couple hours, so I'll see what I learn. I also have been, and I've actually been able, well, I haven't no proof of, I have taken some of my older magnetometer designs, and this is a local version that is that I had developed a long time ago, but I've respun them and had them made better, cleaned them up, worked on them. I had really made them just for myself and maybe Jules originally, but so I got these from China also the other day, and I have been putting on the macro components, and we'll be testing that. And then I have, these are older boards I had made a while back, but I'm sending off a batch to JLC PCB, of an even cleaner version of this board, which would be the remote side of the magnetometer. And all of these I have been trying to get clean production files, Gerber's, bombs, placement files, everything. And I haven't put it up on GitHub yet, but I will very, very soon. I'll probably be sending collections of these files to strategic people who have some interest. But it's coming along, and I even believe I haven't been able to get them to put everything I want on the board, but all the parts are available somewhere. I can get them domestically, and I even think I was having much more luck soldering the I2C differential driver, which had bedeviled me so much in the past. So these once they're written up and put up, these will be available public KiCad designs that anyone can do, and they'll we can use them for documentation for some of these journal articles that want open source stuff.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Dave.
Yeah. I do see that Rob Robinette showed up.
Yep. There he is.
I'm here. I'm sorry to be late.
We hear you've been busy.
Yes, are you ready for another long narration from me, or I'll take my turn. I don't want to
we've already gone through the roll call, so if you want to talk about something you've been working on. Dave has a
before you start, I'd like to ask Nathaniel if there's anything specific he's concerned about from me.
I don't think so. I think the next thing to do is just keep in touch with Hyomin about the files that he needs, and I keep it moving along with him.
I was hoping to get everything off to him yesterday, but life intervened. So I'm maybe tomorrow I'll get everything out to him.
That sounds really good. Thank you, Dave.
It's top on my list.
Thanks.
Sorry. We're in general discussion at this point.
Okay, well, then if you'd like me to describe what I was up to, I'll try to do so, specifically the elements that are relevant to the this Clementine SDR. I had kind of organized my Whisper Demon group for around the Eclipse event, so that we put transmit and receive stations running GPS disciplined receivers and transmitters along the path of the annularity. So my location was Winnemucca, Nevada, which is a 6 hour drive from here. So I went up there on Friday, and I was hosted by a local ham, Tom W07I, and we installed one of the beacon blasters at his QTH, which is still in service, a simultaneous 6-band GPS disciplined 4W transmitter. So it's in service and will be there for the indefinite future. We'll see. Anyway, but more relevant to this group, I on Saturday morning went out and set up a 888 Whisper Demon with a 888 out in a remote location, out in the let's see if I could show you where we were. Let's see. Hold on a second. Anyway, we were outside of Winnemucca here. I'll show you the picture of our setup. Let's see, there it is. So there's the three of us looking at. Oops, is it? There it is. There it is. So this is us out looking at the eclipse, and we did have a few brief moments when the cirrus clouds parted, and we were able to actually see the eclipse during its 4.5 minutes. So on the table in front of us is a 888 attached to my Ryzen running Whisper Demon. And there was a tripod was the end of ended up being a long wire. We had a dipole that I brought that was up in the air, but the long wire proved to be a much more effective antenna, as it turned out. The 888 had its challenges, and in terms of the fill software is so reliable. Let's see, is there? I don't know if there's another. I don't know if I have a. Yeah, there's the transmit site. Let's see. Nope. Anyway, there's the. Well, no, I thought I had a picture of the antenna, but it's not showing up there. But anyway, this is where the transmitter is located at Tom's. He has a giant warehouse at the back of his property, and you can see his 5-element 20-meter beam. That's not what we're transmitting on. But the 888 that out in this remote location worked remarkably well. It posted 1,500, received 1,500 spots in the hour before the totality, and somewhat less than the hour afterwards. And we've begun investigating those, studying the characteristics of the. We can clearly see the change in the MUF that's occurring along different paths. And Gwen, G3ZIL, will be preparing a report, which I'll share with you as he investigates all of those. But the real challenge with the 888 is that it doesn't have any way to really look at the 0 to 30 megahertz spectrum. So in order to actually set up an effective receive site, you really have to be able to look at the whole spectrum, because if I hadn't had the Kiwi sitting next to it and split off the Kiwi, I wouldn't have noticed the RFI lines from the switching power supplies, the power that I needed to power the device. It would be it's almost, in my opinion, an undeployable unit if you cannot look at the full-on spectrum, because you really have no idea what your antennas and distribution systems are delivering to the input. And splitting the RF and feeding a Kiwi to look at what the spectrum looks like itself introduces ground loops and other sources of interference from the receive configuration. So I view the lack of a spectrum analyzer as a serious weakness in the software environment and deployment of a 888. I mean, I guess in principle, I guess TangerineSDR could be used to look at, attach to the, and then switch to the.
All somebody has to do is write the software for my stuff.
Right.
the
Yes, I
spectrum.
know. Well, I'm
I'm already generating it.
What do you need for that? It sounds like something I would very much like to have for other reasons out of the RX-888. It sounds almost like
Anybody here know the right GUIs? I don't.
Well,
I do, but not enough. I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, one of my collaborators, Whisper Demon collaborators, has contacted Phil Harmon to encourage him on this subject. Someone who's, I mean, you don't even have to have a full-on whole receiver. If we could just have a spectrum display and a waterfall beneath it, that's gives you so much information that you need in order to use a receiver effectively and to know what your configuration looks like. So that's really
my code already has a spectrum analyzer feature. I mean, all somebody has to do is write the software to plug into the LAN to
yes. Well, I'm not a candidate to do that. I don't know anything about I'm not like you, Phil. I'm not a user interface programmer. But someone who is, familiar, I suspect this would be a fairly simple. I mean, it needs to be a web page, and in that sense, the things like I think HDSDR would not be a good solution. I mean, you'd have to switch a whole operating system environment in my case, to use get a spectrum display, and then you'd go back and you want to be looking at it all the time because things appear. For example, I saw the bursts of RFI that I described to you, I think last week, that I saw at KPH were appearing to me out there at Winnemucca. They weren't as bad, but they were there. Now, are they because there's these loops between the Kiwis and the 888, and it may be just an artifact of the received setup? I don't know, but there's no way for me to actually look at the same RF that the 888 is seeing without having some software interface. So it would be great. I think I was thinking perhaps, looking for a candidate that would allow for a kind of a browser interface into the K9Q. I wonder, Phil, if something, let's see, what is it? There's several programs, open source, cross-platform SDR programs that can talk to the SOAPy interface. And not that you'd want to write a SOAPy interface into 9Q, your software, but that they have such an interface suggests that those SDRs software might be architected internally that in a way that would make it possible to more easy to create an interface between them and your library. But to me, that's your software is completely reliable. It's completely, functional. It works great with Whisper Daemon for whisper reception, but setting up a receive site, and I'm going back out to KPH again on, to try to solve some of these problems these RFI problems. Lacking a kind of easy user interface. I walked away from KPH, and it was only when I got home that I learned from Whisper Daemon that for some reason the 888 is reporting SNRs that are 10 dB worse than the Kiwi being fed the same RF. There's something wrong in my configuration. It's not your software. It's probably not the 888. But without an easy way to actually look at the spectrum of the 888, it makes it a very, very difficult to deploy and to maintain reliably. So that's my message really to this group is don't forget the software requirements as you work on the hardware. And by the way, we really need this hardware. I mean, the more I work with the 888, the more mysterious and uncertain I am of what's actually going on inside these little boxes. So anyway, I look forward to having the Clementine myself. So that's my diatribe of the week.
Well, thank you.
Can I ask Phil, what you say you provide what's needed to do that? What I haven't looked at I've been too busy with other things, but what are you providing that would be useful?
I have a pseudo demodulator, along with FM and AM or linear. I have a spectrum analysis mode where you basically specify the number of frequency bins, the width of each bin, and then it does a non-coherent integration over some period of time you specify, and dumps the bin value energies out.
And where does it put them, Phil?
Dumps them as
it puts them out over the control channel.
So they would be multicast out like the
multicast, just like you turn the channel into this mode, and then it just starts emitting this whenever it's pulled.
And it dumps them as a stream of bin.
It sends them out as packets in a TL, the same kind of TLV format I use for everything else in my status stream.
Okay.
A TLV is type length value. It's a very common binary encoding format for command status packets on the internet. There's an advantage of it is that you can skip over types you don't understand because you know the length. So you look at it, the type tells you what it is, and then there's a length, and there's a vector of binary bin energies.
And is that there's the module exists in your package already? So
it's already in it.
And the format of those TLV streams is that
I need to write up. I basically need to update my the page on the command status protocol because it's just one of those entries. I don't have a separate page on it yet.
How many bins can it dump? Full spectrum.
Well, that's actually something I'm thinking about. Do I want to split them? Do I want to, how do I want to fragment these things as they come out as UDP packets? So if you have lots of bins, should I split them out as separate bins or have you? But I mean, all the mechanisms are there. It just does a non-coherent summation.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
something I'd like to be thinking about, even if I'm not working on it specifically.
Yeah, well, I think it would be great if the whole, if somehow we could connect up what you have both for, tuning and listening to channels and the spectrum displays, and somehow feed that into some existing, decoding package. That seems.
I understand the appeal of a web server, but web servers are, for me, pain to interface with. If somebody wants to write a module that will, speak my protocol and turn it into a web server, that would be fine.
Well, there are examples of that sort of things and APIs in the browsers that might be useful and stuff. But that's not the only approach.
Yeah.
I was wondering if Franco is still here. Franco, are you there?
He's online.
Yeah, I'm still here.
What would be the possibility of using GNU Radio with something like Phosphor to display?
I could be. I don't know much about Phosphor though.
I've seen it running in GNU Radio, and you've been pretty good at hooking Phil's code up to GNU Radio, or actually outputting to Phil's code, basically.
Yeah, I haven't really looked at Phosphor what it wants. I mean,
but it's from the Osmocom people.
Okay, I'll take a look maybe these days and let you know next week.
Okay.
When I find out, I'm familiar with it.
And that would do the waterfall thing that Rob wants, and then I would assume doing a line graph would be simpler.
I mean,
Well,
I keenly feel the need for it myself. I mean, I'm also running my Kiwi SDR alongside of this thing just so I can get a waterfall.
Yeah.
I mean, even a character mode, cursors based thing would be, would
what
be.
we're talking about
you want a visual.
Yeah.
I can find it.
These things, I mean, this would make a rather nice spectrum analyzer. Even if it didn't do anything else, a pretty inexpensive one, it would seem to me.
There are some mathematical details I got to dig into. I mean, I'm getting this data straight out of the same FFT that I use in my Convolver. I'm not doing any kind of windowing. I need to read up on how I might be able to simulate the windowing or do the operation that we normally associate with windowing from the overlaps in the time domain without doing a whole lot of extra work.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, I'm working at a very high sample rate here.
Yeah.
I have worked a little bit with this cubic SDR software, which supports utilizes the SOAPy API to gather to communicate with the hardware and the SDR hardware. And I'm wondering whether that might be something that might be kind of relatively easy to interface or perhaps that we could induce the developer there. I had some interaction with the guy who developed the
relatively easy interface. God, I wish I had a nickel every time as I heard that phrase. My own experiences, I've become to really detest shimware, and SOAPy SDR is an example of what I call shimware. Somebody's package that aims to take all these different interfaces and make them the same, and then you end up just having to support N+1 interfaces.
Right.
Because it never, all the semantics of the underlying devices are never always fed through, and there's always one you need that's not there.
So,
for example, there's no way with SOAPy SDR that I know of to find the true tuning frequency of the synthesizer in the front end, right?
Well,
we talked about this problem.
Can I break in here a second? I wanted to tell Franco, in the chat, I put in a link to the phosphor.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw the link, so I'm gonna take a look. The other thing Rob was thinking is, wasn't Clint working on integrating KNQ radio with WebSDR, which is wide spectrum?
Actually, yes, that does work. In fact, I'm hoping that out at KPH, once I get the 888 and working out at KPH, hopefully this weekend, that Clint can install the WebSDR software and talk to the Radio D and out there. But the WebSDR software package interface to it is a baseband audio. And Clint has modified Linux, has gotten some Linux drivers built that expand the audio output path, the ALSA, I guess, kernel drivers from their default 192 kilohertz to 768 kilohertz. Well, if you take 768, you can get almost all, covers almost all of the high frequency short ham bands. But that's it. You're not seeing the 0 to 30 megahertz. You're seeing with WebSDR, you're seeing a slice, a 700 kilohertz slice of the of a band, and so it's actually probably hams, operator type hams, DXers really like that WebSDR software because very low latency, and Phil's optimizations of his drivers together with WebSDR should make for a very low latency and highly satisfying listening platform for operators, DXers and CW operators in particular. But it doesn't solve the problem that I have of just how do you see the whole spectrum, and to be able to analyze what your receive environment looks like. This is not a problem that's unique to this project. I mean, I think that any deployment of a receiver anywhere needs to start with a look at the 0 to 30 megahertz spectrum. And if you don't do that, you don't know what interference and you've got, and you don't I got rid of 60 megahertz hertz of 60 dB of RFI because I knew it was there, and I could put in an isolation transformer which got rid of it for me out there in Winnemucca. But if I hadn't known that, that RFI could have been stomping all over my the whisper bands, and I would never really known it. So
can I ask you?
Sure.
You've recorded some of these files of the 30 megahertz bandwidth files. Is that right? Digital data files.
I ran out of time to do that. Clint did make such recordings. So Northern Utah has, I believe he made 2-hour long recordings, an hour before and after the whole spectrum from Northern Utah.
Well, my point is that if you could just get, 1 minute of recording and post it someplace for somebody that wants to work on it, they're going to immediately need something to look at to try to software works. So it'd be nice to have some sort of a seed of data to start looking at.
Well, I think if someone's interested in working on that, I'd be happy to send them a 888, and they can have one in their development environment. Or I'll give them remote access to do development work on KFS systems. I have a system at KFS that I was going to do the full spectrum recording. I did make the recordings, Nathaniel. I did make IQ recordings of all of the bands, all of the ham bands from 2,200 meters of worthless, and that at KFS, but 2,200 meters through 10 meters. IQ, these are 16 kilosample IQ recordings, and all the time bands at the same time. So I have those recordings, actually a week's worth of them, sitting in a file system over at KFS. So, and I think I did the same thing at KPH, but they're not going to be worth very much there. But that I did implement that feature, and it's configurable now in Whisper Daemon that you can make IQ recordings. I was a little unsure of in configuring them what frequency I should choose for the IQ recordings. As it turned out, I chose the tuning frequency, the same tuning frequencies as are defined for the upper sideband tuning for the wave files. But Phil's software is infinitely configurable, as is Whisperdian in terms of frequency and spectrum. So I even Clint wanted me to make recordings of the whole of each of the ham bands, which we could have done, but I didn't have time. So if someone wants to look at IQ from KFS, which is very high quality recordings, very high quality receive site, we do have IQ recordings from everything now, and I can give access to those recordings. And my intention is to expand on this to be sure that when we go for the April eclipse, that all of this, both the full spectrum recordings and the time and whisper band IQ recordings, are both in operation at all of the Whisper Daemon sites. So it's
don't
there.
Forget you got them on my machine too.
Yes, and Phil's receive site is not bad at all, considering where you're located, Phil. You're doing reasonably well.
Okay, could you tell me what to do, because you're running this thing out of space and it's running at 100% CPU time, so it's difficult to back it up.
I stopped. I turned off the IQ record. Did I turn off the IQ recording? I can't remember.
I don't know. It's still running 100% CPU.
Oh well, it is. If that isn't the IQ recording, that's not what's consuming your CPU cycles. You've got a little.
Oh yeah, I see.
You've
Python
got
3. Yeah, okay, yeah.
That's Whisper Daemon. What we need Phil to do, guys, is what we need Phil to do is to rewrite Whisper Daemon, the Whisper D decoder, so that we can get.
I'm this close to already doing it. Problem
You know,
is that it's using sequential decoding, which is inherently CPU hog. You notice the JT9 for FT8 is a lot faster.
Yes, an order of magnitude or more faster.
Yeah, because it uses a different code.
Yes, it's wonderful, but we have to live with what there's 3,000 plus beacons out there sending out Whisper packets, and if we had our own decoder, I wouldn't ask you to do that just to save CPU cycles. That's not the point. Your time is much more precious than buy a new CPU if someone's concerned about that. But we're not getting the spectral information from the Whisper packets that we could be getting. And
what you need. My problems with Whisper D and Decode FT8 are that they're just very clumsily written.
Yes,
you give it an empty file and it drops core. I mean, stuff like that.
I know that. Well, that in my case, we have this analysis from Ryan Tolboom about how to get. And this is how we could get the Doppler shift information from Whisper. Is the information is there just as you have the spectral information, in your decoder. That the Whisper D has the Doppler shift information. It just doesn't have a way to print it out the way that JT9 does.
By looking at the code, first of all, it's not very well commented, but the very first thing it does with the data is run it back through another FFT.
Yeah,
same one I use, in fact.
Yeah. Well, so there's, the information is there. If there are a flag that added to Whisper D that just said dump the spreading information on the decoded packets, that would vastly increase the amount of data we can get about Doppler
when you
shift.
say spreading information, exactly what do you mean?
The JT9 has an option when you turn it on that it will output a number that is in millihertz of the range of frequency bins for a given signal, and it goes from
it does not distinguish between that and drift of the transmitter or receiver.
No, it doesn't.
All right.
Okay,
I didn't know.
Okay,
Good. All right.
Yeah, there's no way for it to. I mean, there's Ryan Tolboom wrote up a whole thing about this, about how Whisper D does the decoding. And where that information, spreading information, is stored in the Whisper D decoder.
Send it over. It'll go on my pile of stuff to do.
Okay. Well, I think I sent it to you before, but I'll send it to you again if I can induce you into, because it involves. I think that there's Fortran in there, and there's, it's a mishmash, and I wouldn't want to go in and try to fix it.
Yeah, Fortran's like riding a bicycle. I guess I can probably learn it again.
Well, I never had occasion to write Fortran, so it's
I did when I was much younger.
That's what I started.
Okay,
well, Rob, what do you want with all these IQ file recordings? I've been backing them up. I haven't from you.
Well, they're only occupying 75% of your disk space. I left 25% of it for you. You have some use for that.
I figure you wanted them backed up, so I've been rsyncing them off, which has been difficult with no CPU time left.
Well, you have to shut off Whisper Daemon in order to do it.
Well, I didn't know what I could shut off because I didn't hear from you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, this whole expedition to Winnemucca, getting ready for it and going and coming back,
understood,
has been distraction. You're going to find me far more available and active, and now
just tell me what I should do with this whole Whisper Daemon login because I've been backing it up.
Okay. Well, that's we should I should start get it off of your machine and up here someplace.
Okay.
If your internet bandwidth, it didn't.
I mean, it's about 400 gig. You tell me what you want to do with it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe it's quicker to send you a disk or something.
Maybe we're headed up to. Well, we're headed up to Pacificon on Wednesday.
Well, I'm good. Okay. I don't think so. I've got to go to KPH on Saturday for sure, and because it's not working, and so I don't think I'm going to make it. So
Okay.
if you want to come down, if you want to come to KPH on Saturday or KFS, it's some on another day.
Well, I mean, I went up there to go to and talk to people at the event. So
okay, well, how long are you going to be here?
Well, we're arriving Wednesday night, and we're going to leave Sunday afternoon.
Okay, well, that doesn't give you much time for. Okay, well, we can talk offline.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, I'm running the 888 behind me. I've decided I'd run it at 128 megasamples and see if it how well it runs, how long it runs. We are Tom out in Winnemucca would like to put up a 6-meter whisper or 4W beacon, and we could rededicate one of those channels, the beacon blaster outputs to 6 meters. So I was thinking I'd put at KPH, I could start listening on 6 meters, but I need to, if I'm going to use the 888, I've got to run it at 128 megasamples. So I hopefully won't burn up this this 888. It's nice and warm. I can still touch the top of it, but it is pretty warm. I think a little warmer. I can measure it and see how much warmer, quantify that difference. But I think that especially with the onset of the reaching the peak of the sunset cycle, doing investigations on 6 meters could be of interest. And the 888 is certainly capable of listening on 6 meters. So I think I'm trying it out to see if it will work. And at KPH, I have direct access to the antenna, so I don't have filters in front of me like I do at KFS that would block 6-meter signals. So that's my other activity of the week.
Rob?
Yeah.
Going back to WebSDR, I was just curious. I went to the site, the University of Twente, and they have the full spectrum there, not just.
Yes, they do. But
so there must be a way that we can feed that to the.
That's the only site in the world. Now, remember that WebSDR is a closed source software. So Professor, whatever his name is, will give you a copy of it, but it's not open source. So his interfaces to his closed source WebSDR are his built-in, I think, RTLSDR support, 8-bit only, okay, and audio, baseband audio. So that's it. And now he of course has his own version that he's running. It's running at 20, but it's not available, and he hasn't documented the interfaces, and it would be a violation of your agreement with him to go and muck with his software.
Okay, never mind.
So that's why that one doesn't work. I think of the open source packages I'm aware of, Cubic SDR seems to me to be, from the having not looked inside of it at all, but having used it, it looks like the best candidate as being able to be interfaced to the to Phil's.
What about John Simon's Kiwi SDR software?
Oh boy, I suggested that to John. He's has publicly announced he's doing his Kiwi 2. And in that process, he consulted with a bunch of us, including me. And I said, John, you just can't add value to the hardware here. The 888 architecture is the right, and Phil's software. Your value add, John, is in your applications layer, and he acknowledged that, but he didn't see a way that he could kind of monetize his work if he just hooked it to he hooked up his software to the 888. So I wasn't going to argue that point with him. He's a reasonable guy, and he knew what the alternatives were. So of course one could go into his software is open source, so I'm sure you could go into his library and rework it. But I think that would be rather impolite. John's investing a lot of time in the Kiwi 2. It is a marvelous device, and it is not a replacement. The 888 isn't a replacement for the Kiwi. So they serve different needs.
Okay.
But they wouldn't if you had if you hooked up his software to a 888, you'd really have a better and cheaper to build product. I mean, his product is going to cost more than a 888 plus a little Orange Pi or Pi 5, Pi 5, and a 888 is going to cost much less than a Kiwi.
Yeah.
So I had hoped he might have thought of a way to sell them as a package. Put the two together and in a box and sell the box with your software, and
yeah.
But that isn't a business model that John's comfortable with. So.
No, I'm going to ask you a pointed question, Rob. Do you want to just see the full spectrum from 0 to 30 on your monitor, or you want to be able to zoom in?
Of course, you need to zoom in. Of course, you need to zoom in.
Okay, because that's how things start. You start, it's a simple thing, but then I want to zoom in. I want to move left. I want to move right. And that's where,
it's not a trivial little project. No, you do typically. What I do is, I pop up. You look at the spectrum. You can see the herringbone patterns at some frequencies. You go up to above 20 megahertz. Zoom in. Oh, they're 64 kilohertz apart. Okay, that's land noise. That's land noise. Okay, so then you go. So then you go down and you see, oh, there's lots of stuff down down below 500 kilohertz. So you zoom down there. Oh, there's a 150 kilohertz fundamental and every harmonic of it. Well, that's a switcher, that's not the only kind of sources. You can see FM band, broadcast FM band intermodulation folding down into the receive spectrum. That's another kind of interference that you can see if you can see the whole spectrum. So there's a whole bunch of potential sources of interference, and to actually identify all of them, you need basically the spectrum functionality of the Kiwi. It's really can't get without it. Okay, other questions?
Now, the reason why I say, because if you wanted to see the full spectrum, I mean, your monitor may be at most, 4,000 points, so you just need the 4,000 point FFT. But if you want to zoom in around the 40-meter band, anyway, that blows up.
Yeah.
I'm already doing an FFT, the entire spectrum with, what is it, 1.62
You do 1,480,000 points.
Right.
Is that? What is the bandwidth of your fundamental ear?
40 hertz.
It's the frame rate is 50 hertz.
Oh, geez.
Actually, the spacing is actually 40 hertz, so the bandwidth
40, because you do the interpolation.
Interpolation, right?
Well, that's you don't do windowing on it. So I mean, the Kiwi's spectrum display
I mentioned that earlier. I'm going to have to look at the math of seeing if I can do the equivalent of windowing on the frequency output. So I'm not going to do another FFT on the whole input just so I can,
Yeah, well, one of the misleading aspects of the Kiwi spectrum is that you frequently will see spectral lines that are artifacts, and if you really want to look at the true spectrum, you really need to zoom in all the way and look at the the demodulated output, not at the spectrum window. And
could you have a GNU radio application that has a slider in it so that you're just sliding a window, and so essentially you're changing the center frequency and the bandwidth that you want to look at, and you just slide across
I've never used new radio, so I don't know what tools it would offer, and how it
it's
would
already got the waterfall feature in it, so there may be a way to do it that way as well.
Well, I'm here to encourage someone who understands that if there's a user interface that is open source and has the insides, the interface to talk to Phil software easily, that's what we're looking for. That's what I'm looking for. I think we let's see. What did this thing tell me? Let's see. How hot is it getting? Oh, yes. 115 degrees on when I was running it at 64 megasamples, it was about 10 degrees Fahrenheit cooler. 104, well, it's almost 15 degrees cooler. So it's almost 15 degrees Fahrenheit warmer at 128 kilosamples, megasamples. 129, I guess. 129.4, isn't it?
And I have to be careful quoting temperatures in Fahrenheit. It tends to make me panic.
Yes. Well, that's why I said Fahrenheit. I can go, if I have my little meter here, if I switch into centigrade, 45.8 degrees is what's on the 46. That's what I measure from the heat sink on top of my 888. This is one that's thermally modified, has the thermal heat pad. So it's warm, almost on the edge of too warm to hold your hand on it. But anyway, it looks like, with the mods we have suggested, the thermal mods seems to be. We'll see. I mean, I'm going to run it now. I'm trying to stress test this thing. If I'm going to break one, I just as soon it happen here on my bench, not out of KPH. Let's see. Oh, I had
it's
another.
Getting late. Yeah, I need to get going. Okay. I'll talk to you guys next week.
Okay, nice.
I think I'm gonna check out too. But thank you very much.
Thank you all. Okay. So
Dave McGaugh.